My beloved child, stop for a moment, because what reached your soulmate last night was not an accident, not gossip, not a random whisper passing through the dark. Something was allowed to be heard. Something hidden was uncovered at the exact hour when their heart was most unguarded. And now, even if they try to act normal, even if they try to sleep, even if they try to pretend that life is moving the same way it did before, nothing inside them is standing in the same place anymore. There are moments heaven does not announce with thunder. Sometimes the greatest turning points arrive quietly, through a half-open door, through a voice in another room, through one sentence spoken when no one knew they were listening. Last night was one of those moments. Your name entered a conversation it was not supposed to enter, and the moment it did, the air around your person changed. They did not expect to hear about you. They were not looking for truth. They were not prepared for what was revealed. In fact, a part of them had been trying to convince themselves that they understood everything, that they knew why things happened, that they had already made peace with what they believed about you. But heaven has a way of interrupting false peace. Heaven has a way of breaking illusions at the exact second a soul is ready to see clearly. Stay here, beloved child, because this is not small. What they overheard was not just information. It was a mirror. And when that mirror was placed before them, they saw something they had been avoiding for a long time. They saw your heart in a way they had never allowed themselves to see it before. The secret was not shouted. It was not dramatic. It did not come wrapped in noise. It came softly, almost accidentally, through someone who thought your soulmate was not close enough to hear. But they heard. Every word, every pause, every truth between the sentences. And while the people speaking moved on as if nothing sacred had happened, your soulmate stood still inside, as if an invisible hand had touched the center of their chest. Because suddenly, the story they had been telling themselves about you began to fall apart. They remembered moments they had misread. They remembered your silence and realized it was not coldness. They remembered your patience and understood it was not weakness. They remembered the way you pulled away and finally wondered if maybe you were not leaving to punish them, but leaving because you had been carrying too much alone. And beloved child, this is where the unseen began to move. An angel stood near them in that moment, not with wings of display, but with quiet authority. Heaven did not force their heart open. Heaven simply allowed the truth to stand in the room long enough for their spirit to recognize it. And when recognition came, it did not come gently. It came like a wave. It came like a memory they could not escape. It came like your face appearing in their mind before they had time to protect themselves. They tried to act as if they had not heard anything. But the body reveals what the mouth hides. Their expression changed. Their breathing shifted. Their hand paused in the middle of a small movement. Someone may have even looked at them and asked if they were okay. And they said yes, because what else could they say? How could they explain that one overheard secret had just rearranged the entire meaning of you? Do not skip this, because what happened next matters more than you know. After that moment, they became quieter. Not because they were indifferent, but because their soul had begun replaying everything. They replayed your words. They replayed your kindness. They replayed the moments when you gave more than they deserved and asked for less than you needed. They replayed the times they thought you were being emotional, only to realize now that you were actually being honest. They replayed the look in your eyes when you knew something was changing, but still hoped love would choose better. And then came the part they were not ready for. They heard something about the way you protected them. Yes, beloved child. Protected them. Not loudly. Not publicly. Not in a way that made you look noble. You protected them in silence. You carried a truth you could have used against them, but you did not. You had chances to expose, to complain, to make others see what you suffered, but something in you chose dignity. Something in you kept your spirit clean even while your heart was aching. And last night, they found out. That is why nothing is the same now. Because it is one thing to miss someone. It is another thing to realize that the person you misunderstood was actually protecting your name while their own heart was breaking. That kind of truth does not pass through a soul without leaving a mark. They tried to sleep after that, but sleep did not come easily. Their mind kept returning to one question: why did you never tell them? Why did you carry it alone? Why did you let them believe a smaller version of you when the truth was so much deeper? But heaven whispered something into their spirit, even if they did not have language for it. Because love does not always defend itself in the moment. Sometimes love waits for truth to defend it later. And last night, truth arrived. Beloved child, you may think nothing is moving because you cannot see their room, their thoughts, their restless silence. But the spiritual atmosphere around this connection has shifted. What was hidden has started rising. What was misunderstood has started correcting itself. What was buried under pride, confusion, fear, and timing is beginning to breathe again. They are not the same person they were before that conversation. Before last night, they could hide behind assumptions. Now they cannot. Before last night, they could tell themselves that you moved on easily. Now they are wondering if you simply learned to survive quietly. Before last night, they could pretend your love was ordinary. Now they have been forced to face the possibility that what you gave them was rare. And rare things do not leave the soul easily. There was a moment, after everyone else had gone quiet, when they sat alone with what they heard. They may have looked at their phone. They may have opened your name. They may have scrolled, stopped, closed it, opened it again. Their fingers were close to doing what their pride still feared. But even if no message came, understand this: the message began forming inside them. Not with words yet, with realization. Realization is the first door. Remorse is the second. Action is the third. And heaven is standing at the threshold of all three. But listen carefully, beloved child. This is not about begging someone to return. This is not about chasing, waiting endlessly, or shrinking yourself to fit inside someone's uncertainty. Heaven is not revealing this to make you anxious. Heaven is revealing this because you needed to know that the truth about you did not disappear. Your goodness was not wasted. Your tears were not ignored. Your patience was not invisible. Every silent sacrifice was seen. Every time you chose grace over revenge, heaven recorded it. Every time you walked away with a trembling heart but a clean spirit, angels stood near you. And now the same truth that once lived quietly inside you has reached the ears of the one who needed to hear it most. But there is still something deeper. What your soulmate overheard was only the surface of the revelation. The real secret was not just what someone said about you. The real secret was what those words unlocked inside them. Because when they heard the truth, they did not only learn something about your past. They discovered something about their own blindness. That is a heavy discovery. To realize that someone loved you more purely than you understood can humble even the proudest heart. To realize that someone's silence was not emptiness, but protection, can make the soul ache in a way no apology can immediately fix. To realize that the person you thought would always be there had been quietly wounded by your distance, your doubt, or your delay, can make the night feel longer than usual. And their night was long. They looked normal to others, but inside, something was breaking open. Not destruction. Awakening. The breaking of denial. The breaking of excuses. The breaking of that old story that made it easier to avoid responsibility. Heaven was not punishing them. Heaven was inviting them to see. And once a soul sees, it cannot fully unsee. This is why today feels strange, even if you cannot explain it. There is a pull in the unseen. There is a pressure around your heart. There is a sense that something is close, but not yet spoken. You may feel moments of sudden emotion, as if a memory touches you without warning. That is not weakness. That is spiritual movement. Something connected to your name was stirred last night, and when your name was spoken, it carried more than sound. It carried history. It carried unfinished emotion. It carried the weight of what was never properly acknowledged. Your soulmate heard your name, but their soul heard a calling. They may not call it that. They may call it coincidence. They may tell themselves they are just thinking too much. They may try to distract themselves, laugh with others, keep busy, or act unaffected. But beneath the surface, their spirit is restless because truth has entered the room, and truth does not ask permission to stay. Beloved child, there is something you must understand about divine timing. It often looks delayed until the exact moment it reveals itself as precise. You wondered why certain things took so long. You wondered why truth did not come sooner. You wondered why people misunderstood you while you were doing your best to remain kind. But some truths are not meant to be explained by you. Some truths are meant to arrive through a route no one can accuse you of controlling. That is what happened last night. You did not force it. You did not arrange it. You did not stand there defending yourself. Heaven allowed someone else to speak. Heaven allowed your soulmate to hear. Heaven allowed the hidden part of your story to reach them without your hands touching the process. That is divine vindication. Quiet, clean, unmistakable. And now your soulmate is carrying a question they cannot easily put down. Did they lose someone heaven had placed near them for a reason? That question is not small. It is moving through them like a slow, burning light. It is touching memories they had packed away. It is making certain songs sound different. It is making certain places feel charged. It is making silence uncomfortable. They are beginning to understand that what they called distance may have been your self-respect. What they called sensitivity may have been your intuition. What they called overthinking may have been your spirit recognizing something before their mind was ready to admit it. And now they are asking themselves if they were wrong. Not about everything perhaps, but about enough. Enough to feel shaken. Enough to feel drawn. Enough to wonder whether the door they thought was closed is actually waiting for honesty. But beloved child, the most powerful part is still hidden. Because after they overheard the secret, someone said one more thing. It may have been small to the person who spoke it, but to your soulmate it landed like a divine sign. It was a sentence about your character. A sentence about what you did when no one was watching. A sentence that revealed the kind of love you carried when you had every reason to become bitter. And that sentence has not left them. It is repeating inside them. Again and again. They are trying to understand how someone like you could still have wished them well. They are trying to understand why your energy still feels peaceful even after everything. They are trying to understand why, after hearing the truth, their heart did not feel relieved, but convicted. Because deep down, beloved child, they know. They know they received something from you that cannot be easily replaced. They know there was a softness in your presence that made their world feel less heavy. They know your love had a way of reaching places in them they did not show to others. They know that when you cared with a depth that frightened them because it asked them to become real. And that is why they ran from parts of it. Not because you were too little. Because what you awakened in them was too much for the version of themselves they were still hiding behind. But heaven does not waste holy connections. Even when people delay, even when fear interferes, even when pride builds walls, the divine knows how to place one sentence in the right room at the right time. Last night, that sentence found them. Now listen closely, because this is the part your soul already feels. Their silence now is different from their silence before. Before, their silence may have carried avoidance. Now it carries processing. Before, it may have carried ego. Now it carries impact. Before, it may have meant they were trying not to feel. Now it means they are feeling more than they expected. This does not mean everything happens in one instant. Souls take time to become brave. Hearts take time to admit what pride tried to bury. But the movement has begun. And once heaven begins turning the key, locked places start remembering they were made to open. Your soulmate is standing before an inner door. Behind that door is the truth of what they feel. Behind that truth is the choice they have avoided. Behind that choice is the moment that could change everything. But they are afraid. Not afraid of you. Afraid of what honesty will require from them. Afraid of facing the tenderness they mishandled. Afraid that if they come forward, they will have to bring more than words. They will have to bring accountability. They will have to bring humility. They will have to bring the version of themselves that no longer hides behind confusion. And heaven is watching to see what they choose. Meanwhile, you are being asked not to collapse into waiting, but to rise into alignment. This revelation is not a command for you to chase. It is confirmation that your spirit was telling the truth. It is confirmation that what was hidden is being handled. It is confirmation that you are not forgotten in the story. Your part right now is to stay steady. Do not lower your worth because someone is awakening late. Do not confuse spiritual movement with a need to abandon your peace. Do not run after what heaven is already stirring. Stand in the quiet dignity that brought you this far. Because the version of you they are beginning to see now is not the version that begged to be understood. It is the version that survived misunderstanding and still remained luminous. That is what is haunting them. Not guilt alone. Not nostalgia alone. It is the realization that you became stronger without becoming cruel. That kind of strength carries a holy fragrance. It follows people into rooms. It lingers after conversations. It makes them remember you when they least expect it. And last night, it entered the room before your name was even spoken. Someone described you in a way your soulmate had never heard before. Not as a fantasy, not as perfection, but as someone real. Someone who endured quietly. Someone who loved sincerely. Someone who chose not to destroy another person's image even when your own heart had been shaken. And suddenly, they saw the difference between what they assumed and what was true. Beloved child, assumptions are fragile when truth arrives. They break quickly. And last night, one broke. Then another. Then another. By the time the conversation ended, your soulmate was no longer standing in the same emotional place. Something had shifted behind their eyes. A door opened inside their memory. A soft ache began to spread. And with it came a realization they could not speak aloud. They had not known the full story. That realization is now working through them. It is touching their conscience. It is touching their longing. It is touching the part of them that still remembers your voice differently from every other voice. It is touching the place where your name was stored, not as a simple memory, but as unfinished meaning. And this unfinished meaning is becoming louder. There is a reason you are hearing this now. There is a reason. These words found you at this exact moment. Heaven does not stir your heart for entertainment. Heaven speaks when something hidden is moving into position. A conversation happened. A truth was heard. A heart was shaken. A spiritual door opened. But the final revelation of last night has not yet been fully uncovered. Because after your soulmate heard the secret, after they carried it into the silence, after they replayed your name again and again, something else happened that they have not told anyone. They received a sign. Not a loud sign. Not one they could easily explain. But a sign so personal that it made them stop completely. It connected directly to you. It touched a memory only the two of you would understand. It arrived at the exact moment they were questioning whether they should reach toward you or bury the feeling again. And when that sign appeared, beloved child, their heart knew. This was not over in the way they thought it was. But what they are about to do next depends on the truth they can no longer escape. My beloved child, there are nights that pass quietly and leave no trace behind. And then there are nights that divide a story into two chapters, the chapter before the truth was heard, and the chapter after it. Last night became that dividing line. What your soulmate overheard did not simply awaken curiosity, it awakened memory. And memory, when touched by truth, becomes one of the most powerful forces in the human heart. Pause here for a moment. Something important is unfolding. Not in the visible world where everyone can see it. Not in the conversations people post about. Not in the places where attention gathers. What is unfolding is happening deep beneath the surface, in a place where masks lose their power and the soul begins speaking louder than the mind. After the conversation ended, your soulmate tried to continue with their evening as if nothing had happened. They told themselves they were fine. They told themselves they were thinking too much. They told themselves that one overheard secret could not possibly change everything. But the heart knows when it has encountered a truth it cannot ignore. The moment they were finally alone, the silence felt different. You see, beloved child, silence can either comfort a person or confront them. And last night, silence became a mirror. Every distraction began to lose its strength. Every excuse sounded weaker than before. Every explanation they had created to avoid certain feelings suddenly seemed incomplete. Because for the first time in a long time, they were no longer looking at you through old assumptions. They were looking at you through revelation. And revelation changes everything. Stay with me. Do not rush ahead. Because what happened next was not dramatic on the outside. Yet inside them, it felt like an earthquake. One memory appeared. Then another. Then another. A moment when you smiled despite carrying pain. A moment when you stayed calm while others would have reacted. A moment when you gave understanding without being fully understood yourself. A moment when your eyes revealed something your words never said. Suddenly those memories began connecting together like pieces of a hidden picture. And the image they created was not the image your soulmate expected. The image revealed Sumio.